everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, welcome to a very special edition. We are building the Das Werk's U-boat, and this is from World War I. And I did an unboxing of this particular kit a few episodes back, so if you're just joining us now and you want to sort of check in with that first, it's worth going back just to sort of look at the overall aspect of it. This particular build, I'm going to be a little more methodical, a little slower, and try to build this entire kit on camera. I mean, obviously there's a few things where we're gonna sort of jump forward here and there. But that will only be if and when we're in a situation where I feel like you don't need to stop and sit and watch me fiddle with something for 3 hours. But anyway, I hope this is enjoyable. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe. And for some of you who don't know, I also am on Instagram at Spruverse, and my website is spruverse.com. If you're here for the first time, as I said, thank you, and here we go. Now, the instructions are quite clear, and I don't believe, having gone through everything, that there is anything sort of super, you know, there's no warning signs here, sort of, that there's going to be something tricky. There are a couple of moments in this build where we're going to have to probably do some sub-assemblies and some painting if we want things to come out right. Like, for instance, coming up very quickly is going to be these vent stacks that vented the submarine. And it looks to me, and I've checked out some other guys who are building this kit, and it looks to me like it's probably a good idea to paint that as a sub-assembly, and so that's what we're going to try and do. The other thing I'm praying for is I did find online a photo etch kit from a company called RC Subs, and I believe they're in Czechoslovakia, but I'll double check that for you. And they have a pretty cool photo etch kit that I have bought, and it is supposed to be winging its way here, although if and when it arrives, I don't know. But anyway, we'll pray for that, right? So the first thing it wants you to do is in this sub-assembly, which is really quite clever, is it has you, and I'll do this. Let me get this on fill cam because I think it's worth it. It has you taking these pins right here. And as you can see, here they are on the actual instructions, and they go into these slots all the way down the boat. And the purpose of this is to create a very strong superstructure. Along with that, you have these elements too. These are the actual torpedo tube doors, which I've chosen to put in the closed position. And then there is another superstructure plate like this, which will go a little further down. There's a couple of those. So I will put those in as well. Forgive my skin. I actually touched some acetone, and my skin and acetone don't get along. So what I've done is I've taken the first pin off, and you got to be really kind of careful with some of these things because it could pop and fly and you could lose it. But I'll show it to you here in C camera. You can see it here in B. This is the smallest of them all, and interestingly enough, I thought when you actually drop it into the kit, that it would have some kind of a you know, like a tight fit to it. It doesn't. It's extremely loose. So you do have to actually glue these into place. So I'm gonna do that right now, and we'll see how we go. And then, of course, as we go along this kit, these get wider, longer and wider, and then that's how the superstructure gets held in place nicely. Let me double check to make sure there isn't a right way or a wrong way, and there really isn't. And so the first thing it actually wants you to do before you put this pin in is it wants you to put this piece in, which is the torpedo doors. So I'm going to put that in. So I want you to put this in, and this is the torpedo door tube, but it's also the part of the superstructure, which I think is really kind of cool. So, and of course I'm using Tamiya extra thin cement, and we'll just let that set up for a second. The other thing I should say to you is it does recommend that you build this stand first. Now, I am going to use this stand for now just to hold the boat for me while I'm building it, but I'm not going to use it for final display. There is something that I talked about called Dust Dock from a company called Ushi. And I believe it, I don't know, they're not part of the Werk's family. They're a separate company, I believe. I could be wrong. I'll double check that. But they are building out of laser cut panels, wood panels, with paper on the outside, a dry dock scene for this to sit in. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to go for that. We may pick it up as a Sprueverse courtesy to my channel viewers, just so that we can look at it and see what we've got. I may also try to build something out of styrene, because I think a dry dock could be kind of fun to try and build. But anyway, I digress. Now, before I put this superstructure in place, I did want to share something with you, because there's an amazing story about a guy called Otto Weddingen. Otto Weddingen. And I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. It certainly didn't to me. But since during the First World War, his name was about as famous in Germany as, for instance, von Richthofen was. The U-9 of the U-9 class U-boat was his mount, in which he sank 3 British armored cruisers. He sunk the HMS Hogue, the Oberkorps, and the Cressy in less than an hour. Imagine this. And what is extraordinary is now this happened on September the 22nd, 1914. And even though these 3 ships were deemed obsolete and were manned by reservists, the sinking made Weddingen a hero of the nation overnight. In this event, 1,450 British reservists with families died, resulting in fury and outcry in Britain and a big dent in the British military morale. Now, this is one amazing story about a British sailor called Wenham, Kit Wycombe Musgrave. What a name, right? Now, he was on board the HMS Oberkorps when it was struck and sunk by this U-9 boat. And he jumped and swam like a madman to escape the suction of this thing going down, this boat going down. And he was picked up by HMS Hogue, which was in turn torpedoed right after he got on board. Can you imagine this guy's luck? And so he then swam off of that boat to the HMS Cressy, which was also torpedoed. This guy was having a crappy day. Imagine this, you couldn't write this. This all happened within a course of a few hours. So, now, what was amazing about this guy is he clung onto a piece of driftwood until a a Dutch trawler came along and he survived. In fact, he lived until 1989. And Weddigen was the German for sinking these boats, was awarded the Iron Cross, and he. It says here, he says that Weddigen was awarded the Iron Cross First Class and his crew each received the Iron Cross Second Class. Weddigen, however, did not survive the war. He actually was killed in a second U-boat, which was sunk. It was U-boat U-9. Interestingly enough, it was sunk by the HMS Dreadnought. No crew members survived, but what a story! And so these U-boats were really, they were obviously incredible engineering for the time. And I just thought I just got a huge kick out of that, and I thought I wanted to share that story with you because it really puts into perspective the fact that. So many people gave their lives from both sides of the war, and this must have been a horrific thing to be in. I mean, greasy and noisy and incredibly dangerous. And anyway, there you go. So now we're putting this superstructure together here. I'm going to put in the first of these little pins, and what I'm very careful to do is just make sure that it sits upright, and before I actually drop some glue in it. Now this is extra thin. It's not the quick setting, because I think the quick setting sometimes is great for super tiny parts, but I also find sometimes it can be a little brittle. And if you knock something before it's fully cured, you can lose it. So anyway, that's the first pin. The next one is D10. So I have my D panel in front of me, and I found 10. So I'm going to take that off of the tree. And I'm using these clippers from Tamiya, which they're very good. There's all kinds of different versions of these, but I find them to be a little more comfortable in my hand than these big Zurons, which I find are a little meaty, and their blades burn out pretty quickly. So I just use this for big chunky stuff, and I avoid getting these things anywhere near close to the actual part. Now this looks thicker, which it is, and that just drops in, and it actually had a slightly thicker contact post than the first one did. So we'll get some glue on this, and we'll let that wick in. And what I'm going to do is I've just got a little bit of wax here that I'm just putting behind here, so this doesn't rock quite so much. There. So that was 10. And then you go to 12, curiously, which hurts my head because you think you'd go to 11, but you don't. You go to 12 apparently. So there you go. We will go to, and I apologize if some of this sprue cutting happens off camera, but you don't need to necessarily see me cutting a sprue. Yeah. That's 12, so that goes there. So we'll drop that in, and we'll get some glue on that, like so. And I'm going to continue putting these in place, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, so far so good. Nothing to sort of panic about. The plastic on this kit, I must say, I really like. I like the way it feels. It's got a tension to it, but it sounds quite well, but it feels pretty solid. So I'm halfway through here, and I'm going to put this is the next big superstructure piece to go in here. It's interesting. It's almost like a biscuit in woodworking. You know, if you ever did woodworking and you use those sort of biscuits which are used to hold things together. Now, I just felt a drop of that the quick setting, this glue drop on my hand. I got it away from the kit very quickly. Because if it drops on the plastic, which I'm sure you know, you're going to burn it, and that's not going to be easy to clean up. But as you can see here, we're doing quite well. This process is moving along quite nicely. So the next one up is D7. So there were two D7s, so I guess we just go back, we're going to just reverse we're just going to reverse this now. And if you're just joining me, we're putting in the pegs for the superstructure. And what's going to happen is these pegs are going to allow us to join these two halves together and give it some rigidity. And that's the way this particular model has been designed. So now I'm up to a D11, so we're actually just sort of reversing now. We're going to drop this one in here. Now at this point, I've not had to worry really about whether or not these are square. I am trying to line them up as best as I can, but we're going to have a little bit of flexibility in these struts, I think. So now we're at 8D8, which is this one here. And this looks to be, curiously enough, one of the longest, but it's not. It's a little deceiving, but and as I've mentioned earlier, these pegs, they're not tight. So, which I was a little surprised at, to be honest with you. I thought they would have a nice tight fit, but maybe that was just sort of the engineering of it. I'm not entirely sure. So here's another 4. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is there's only 4 sprues, so there's not a tremendous amount to this kit. What I'm super excited about is painting it. Now I know there's going to be some tricky challenges along the way, and we're going to have some masking issues and stuff like that. This is one of those times where, you know, you wish you could pick up the phone and call Cult TV Man and get a Aztec dummy mask. Lou, where are you when I'm painting a U-boat? That's okay, he's somewhere out in the galaxy doing a spaceship or something, but not my U-boat. So looks like I have got a couple more of these to go. I've got 2 more. I've got a D12. Let's see here. Where is D12? Hello? Here it is. Here's D12. D12. here, so that's going to drop in like that. And again, it sits upright nicely, but it's not a tight fit. And that's this one here. And this completes, if you can believe it, these struts. And when you know it, the last one appears to be the tightest. Now, that completes that. Then the next thing it's going to want us to do is put this piece in, and the last of the bulkhead pieces, and I off camera just dropped in these two little pinholes that it asks you to glue. The nice thing about these is they're slipping in quite well, and there's only one way these go in, so you don't really have to worry too much about whether or not you've put something in incorrectly, although I encourage everybody to always dry fit something and double check it before you glue it. So that completes that piece of it, and we're going to let these dry. So as you can see, all these pins are in, and all of these bulkhead pieces are in. And what that is going to do is to allow us to actually put these two halves together. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment here and let this dry. So while that is drying, we're going to go on to the next piece here, which is the actual deck portion. Now, there's a couple of pieces I can put on here, and there's a couple of pieces I can assemble. However, I cannot actually, I don't think I want to attach the smokestack to the actual superstructure of the deck. And the reason being is that I think I'm going to paint that as a sub-assembly, and I just think it's going to make my life a lot easier when it comes to the final product. I've seen some guys put this in and then struggle to paint it, and I'm thinking to myself, probably better done as a sub-assembly. So that's probably what I'm going to do. So we're pulling this off the tree. Now this is all very exciting for me. I've not done this before to this detail. You know, usually I go away, clean it all up, fix it, and then show you what I've done. But I thought it would be fun to actually not do that, but to actually see the process of me putting this kit together. And try not to embarrass myself. And of course, if I get too panicky, I will turn off that camera. I'm not afraid to use the off button. Now, the thing about this is I believe this sits, it does, there's some small ledges on the inside of the whole assembly. And this entire piece sits in them. Now, this is where the rivet counters, I think, left and went on their own trip, because I know that apparently some aspects of this kit may not be absolutely correct. I'm going to build it right out of the box. Okay. So from the C sprue, which is here, this is the great thing about this. We literally just have we're dealing with 3 sprues now. So unlike my Titanic build, which, you know, I've got like 90, anyway. Sorry, I just had to vent. Okay, so here we go. we need C6, C2, and C5. So here's 5. And here's 6. And I need a 2. Now it looks like there's a couple of these. So here are the parts. And now, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, does this need to be painted before I drop it in? Because it looks to me like, as I put these 3 pieces together, that you're going to be able to look down into there. Maybe that should be black, I don't know, but maybe I can just drop some black paint in there, or when I prime that. I think I'm going to. I don't think I'm going to worry about that. I'm just going to put these together. Now, I will say that some of these parts are incredibly tiny in 1/72nd scale, and the thing of it is for the viewer of this subject matter, I suppose it really depends on how it's displayed and the light. But there's also another aspect to it as well, and we've talked about this before, which is you finish things that the audience can't see because you do it for pride, and you do it because you know that it was done, and it was done correctly, and there's something to be said for that, I think. Sometimes I get real pleasure out of that. Okay, so those 2 are done, and I'm going to insert those next into these positions here and here. So there doesn't appear to be any rhyme or reason to that, they just go in. However, I think I'm going to pay attention to an angle here, because I think that otherwise the pin, the inside pin, which looks to me like it may be an anchor chain thing, I'm not sure, but I'm putting them in this way, and I'm lining them up. I'm going to do that one that side, and I'm going to do that one like that. Interesting enough, it doesn't tell you which way to do it, but that's what I'm going to do. So there we go. Oops. Come on. There we go. It's pretty good. Okay, we're going to let those dry, and we'll be back to put the smokestack together. Stay with me. Okay, so here is our smokestack vent housing unit, and this is the bit that we, interestingly enough, when I first encountered this in the unboxing episode, I said to you guys that I was going to most likely just glue it in one permanent place, up or down, because I didn't want to mess with this stack rising and falling. But I feel like since the instructions are asking us to kindly not glue this pin, in place. Rather, it allows you to drop it down and raise it up. I'm going to honor that, and I'm going to build the kit as they ask us to at the moment. Now, having said that, I could easily change my mind, but at the moment I'm not. At the moment I'm going to honor their wishes. I'm going to put this smokestack together. Now what I like to do, and you can see in this particular piece, curiously enough, it lines up quite well, and it fits quite nicely together. And I as you all know, where these were attached to the trees, we have these little knobs. Now I don't know if this is a tip or a trick, but I prefer not to touch them at this point. What I prefer to do is get everything lined up and then glue it. And then after it has been glued, I take those knobs away. Now I find there's a couple of things that happen. One is I get a much cleaner fit, because sometimes with small parts, if you're not careful, you can gouge the plastic. And once you do that, there's no going back. You're just in a world of hurt. So I prefer to do it this way, and I've gotten a lot of success doing it. This way. Now I have to say, the fit on these is quite nice. The other thing you get too is you can actually, while these are drying, I put a little bit of pressure on them, but you get that really nice kind of effect from this glue, which is it actually melts plastic together. Now there's a lot of you that make sprue glue out of it, which I've made some for this particular boat, because there is a seam that runs down the very bottom of the boat. Now even though we won't see it, if that seam does not go together well, I'm prepared to sprue glue it. And I made this about an hour ago, and it's already doing its thing. It's the last dregs of my Tamiya extra thin, and I saved the bottles, and I've filled this one up to almost to the top, and I've dropped in sprue from this kit, so it's a perfect match. And overnight that'll do its thing, and it'll melt, and it becomes a really good way to hide seams. So away we go now, and I'm going to just clean this up. I'm barely scraping, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to put a tremendous amount of pressure on it. I just want to put enough in there to watch that seam disappear. And I'm being very light about it, and you're not seeing what I'm seeing, but essentially what has happened is these two parts have melted together beautifully, and there's barely anything you can see there. And once that is painted with a primer filler paint, that will be gone. Now you can use things like Steino Res, which I may do. The Steino Res, it's an expensive primer from Badger, and it will suck into the plastic, and it tends to be a little more gracious with details. And so I may do that on this one because in some places where I'm concerned about the filler paint sort of sucking in those details. Now, as I sand this, and I apologize to you guys who already know this, but I'm not putting any pressure on this as I drag it across this cylinder. I'm barely touching it. I'm just letting the sponge, and it's a soft sponge, do its thing. And you know, just be patient with it and take your time. And the net result is you won't get that flat kind of, you know, harsh curve. And this is actually come together quite nicely. And I'm using these Flory sticks from the UK. I love them. You just can't beat them. It's a real quality product. There are hundreds of grits that you can choose from, and they ship to the US. A couple of companies have stopped doing that from the UK, and I guess it's probably because of the cost of shipping, which is a darn shame. But there you go. I love my Flory sticks. So that's one side done, and it's pretty good. As you can see, I'm going to hold that to C camera, which is, there you go. And that's nice and smooth. So I'm going to continue doing that. That drops into this piece right here, and that allows that to drop into the superstructure. How you get that out, God only knows. You're going to have to use some tweezers if you want to pull it out and show it that way. But I'm going to sub-assemble this. I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and I'm going to prime this, and I'm going to paint it. And so that's what we're going to do next.